Hello there, everyone. My name is Dylan Padilla. I'm an interdisciplinary studies major at VCU. I'm also a tabletop game developer and a freelance game journalist. Um, and I'm here to talk to you about a problem that's facing my prospective career field of games journalism, which is the fact that game ratings don't really matter anymore. I'm going to be deconstructing this problem, looking at it from a bunch of angles, and trying to implement a solution that hopefully you will agree with. So, when I say game ratings don't really matter anymore, what am I saying by that? Well, to put it frankly, developers of these games and the publishers that review these games and give them promotion have a symbiotic relationship. And that relationship is great for them, but it's harmful for the consumer. So, when I say it's symbiotic, what do I mean by that? Well, if you're a game developer, you obviously want a reviewer or a publishing outlet to, maybe come to your studio, look at your game, drum up some press for it, and create some excitement, right? If you're on the other end of that and you are the journalist who's going to that studio, getting the exclusivity deal, doing interviews with developers, you're also benefiting from that because you are getting people who are interested in this game coming to your website or magazine to check out these, kind of privileges that you've been allocated by the studio. So it works great for the studio and for the publisher. But if this relationship is working great for them, why do I want to change it? Well, it sucks for the consumer. So, with the rise of new gen titles going from 60 to $70, we all have to kind of realize that our time is valuable. If you were like me, as a kid, you didn't have that much money for games, so whenever you would buy a new game, it was a really, really special occasion, and you would try and spend all the time just like milking out that $60 from that video game that you could, right? And we as an industry kind of acknowledge that your time is valuable. And in that spectrum, reviews matter because they tell you what is worth spending your time and through that your money on. But when the review landscape breaks, we get what's happening here. Every Call of Duty game in the last about 10 years has received between an 8 to 9 out of 10. Anything that you see in a magazine outlet that has a score of 7 out of 10 or less is considered bad. So we've essentially cut our rating scale from 1 to 10 to about 5 to 10, where if you see a game now and it's got a 5 out of 10, it's considered unplayably terrible. We've skewed the way that we review these products, and it's hurting us as consumers. So it's easy to start just like throwing out all these big things like, the symbiotic relationship between developers and publishers is hurting us, and we aren't getting any valuable landmark of how good a game is or anything. But backing this up is a different thing. But I do have evidence to back it up, and it's alarming and sad. First, we have the infamous case of Jeff Gertzman. If you are unfamiliar with the field, Jeff Gertzman was a reviewer at a really popular website called GameSpot as an editorial director. He was fired for giving a video game called Kane and Lynch Dead Men a poor score. Now, when you say that, it seems, transparently a blanket awful thing to do. But let's, take a look from his perspective. Eidos Interactive, the publishers who put out Kane and Lynch, did a big promotion with GameSpot. They put a ton of advertising money into that. The entire website used a Kane and Lynch theme in background instead of their regular, GameSpot layout. And they'd sunk a ton of time, money, and resources into getting this exposure through GameSpot. So, when the, biggest name at GameSpot comes out and he gives the game a fair score, so about, a 5 out of 10, GameSpot fires him. There's no, actual explanation for it, but we all really know what happened. So, if you are a person like me and you've just been hired at a publishing outlet, right? And let's say I'm working at IGN and they are running a huge promotion with a new Call of Duty game. We've, changed the website header. Our Twitter is all decked out in Call of Duty stuff. We've got an exclusive thing where you use code IGN at checkout and get like $3 off your game or whatever. But then I come out and I say, this game kind of sucks. I give it a 3 out of 10. What's going to happen there? Well, number one, Call of Duty is going to be very reluctant to give my publishing outlet access and privileges to this game, like exclusivity deals or like, big advertisements like I was just talking about. So it's going to hurt not only myself, but all of my coworkers at this publishing outlet. And it could even get me fired. Alternatively, if I just have to, take a look at the game and its poor quality, but then I look behind it and I see all these people at my company that are relying on this publisher to, return to work, I'm more likely going to give that game artificially inflated score just because I see the writing on the wall. And that's really just how it goes now. That's why we see most AAA games, no matter the state they're really in, not get lower than a 7 out of 10 because the influx of money is so great that it would hurt not only the partnership, but them as a company and people they know, just by being honest with themselves. And that's terrible. Another more contemporary example of this would be Cyberpunk 2077, which created a lot of controversies on its release. For those of you who don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 was a very long-awaited title that had been delayed a couple times. People were just over the moon about getting their hands on this game finally. And so, about a week before release, CD Projekt Red, the developers behind Cyberpunk, start sending out review copies to publishers like IGN, GameSpot, but also, freelance ones. The problem, though, is this. People who were reviewing the game weren't allowed to use their own gameplay footage of the game. They also were only able to review the game on PC, which doesn't sound like a big thing. However, when you take a look at the landscape as a whole, you see two big problems. Number one, the gameplay footage. This game was littered with game-breaking bugs, graphical issues, texture pop-ins, you name it. And because they were only allowed to use footage that the studio provided them, it looked like it was a great game that had nothing going wrong with it. It was all just like, these cherry-picked slice-of-life moments that the developers wanted you to see to buy the game. On top of that, with the PC-only controversy, generally it's accepted that gaming PCs are kind of on a line above standard consoles. They're typically more powerful, they have a lot more money thrown at them to be built, yada yada yada. So, Cyberpunk was running great on PCs. However, the console ports were completely broken and nigh unplayable. To the point where Sony, the manufacturers of the PlayStation game series, completely removed Cyberpunk off their stores for quality control reasons, which is something that has never before happened to a major AAA release. To this day, you can still go on Sony's eStore and not find Cyberpunk anywhere on there because they're still unhappy with the current state of the game. So, when you look at these review embargoes, it's another big problem because, of course, you want this exclusivity deal. Of course, you want people to click your website first when they search Cyberpunk 2077 review. However, that comes at the cost of transparency and being truthful. which I would argue is more important to the consumer than the first result. On top of this, we also have to consider the ecosphere of the industry, where reviewers are wined and dined with parties, lavish events, studio tours, swag, stuff like that. And it creates an even more skewed landscape, which again is fine for them and their ecosystem, but it's hurting consumers. So what can we actually do to help this a bit? I thought of a couple different solutions. Things like 7-year contracts between a developer and a publisher outlet. So no matter what you score their game, you're still going to have access to the next one, and then you can, decide at the end of that term if you want to renew your service with them because you feel like they've been fair, or cut it off and not give them any more exclusivity deals because you feel like they haven't been representing your game as they should. I don't like that just because it seems very complicated. It would kind of mess up the money flow, and also it doesn't really tackle the root of the issue. Same thing with embargoes and exclusivity deals, like say, we will let GameSpot review our game 1 week before we allow everyone else to. But again, none of these can really get to the root of the issue, which is, at its core, transparency. So, what do? Obviously, there is a wall here, and the wall separates consumers from the industry, the publishing outlets, the developers. And I don't want to tear that wall down. I would very much like to climb over that wall and be on the other side of it. But until then, the best thing I can do is carve out a window into it to allow us on the other side of that wall to peek through. What am I actually talking about here? Well, I've created a system called transparency tokens. Basically, they are a system of tokens that will go on the bottom of any game review that will, clearly and without the need for a bunch of disclaimers and all that, show the relationship that any individual reviewer may have with a publisher. So, we have 4 icons, which I will go over in a little bit, and we also have 3 tokens that can go with those icons that can be easily applied at the bottom of reviews to show a quick transparency report and give the consumer the impression that you are being truthful and open with them, which generally is something that they appreciate. So let's talk about implementation a little bit. Here you'll see that this is a review I've written for one of my favorite games, Devil May Cry 5. I go on and on about it for quite some time, but in the end I give it a verdict of this is a fantastic game, you should buy it. Theoretically though, let's say that something is happening behind the scenes here that you don't know about. A couple months before this came out, I contacted one of the developers on Twitter, and we created a little friendly jaunder and became pretty good acquaintances. And right before the game came out, he actually mailed me a copy on behalf of the company to review the game and give my thoughts on it. Well, how do I disclose that to any viewers? Well, if we come down here after the verdict, we'll see these icons with some tokens on them that look a little bit like push notifications on your phone. Well, what do they mean? Well, let's take a look at this controller icon first. All we have to do to decipher these is scroll down to the key. Controller icon means this game was provided to me by a developer for the purposes of reviewing. And we take a look at this little 1 token up here, Roman numeral 1. Roman numeral 1 means this is the first time I've been provided a review copy by this company. Cool. Now let's take a look at this icon, the guy sitting in a chair at a computer, also with a 1. Well, we go down to here, and we look at 1. I have personal ties with a person who has created, worked on, or marketed this product. 1 means I'm a personal friend to a person who has created this product. I wanted to leave room for nuance because every reviewer has a different story, and we need to, have some room to accommodate the variations of interpersonal relationships that could provide conflicts of interest. So we have these tokens going in, I guess it would be severity, from Roman numeral 1 to Roman numeral 3. These don't always correlate to a direct number. So, for example, Roman number 3 doesn't mean that you've been given 3 copies by this developer. We'll actually go in here and see. 2 means I've been given review copies in the past between 2 and 5 times, and 3 means 5 or more times. If we go down to the developer icon, 3 isn't I know 3 or more people here. It's I'm friends with many people, 10 or more, who have worked on this product, or I'm family members or relatives with a person who's worked on this product. One concern is that this may have a chilling effect on interpersonal relationships between developers and reviewers, but I would argue that that's not the case actually. As a reviewer, what you want to do is create a consistency with your audience to let them know what you respond well to, what you think is worth your time, and by proximity theirs, and also to show that, it's not just a closed system. Let's see. And wrapping up on implementation, these tokens can be pretty easily placed at the bottom of almost any review. Furthermore, if you are going to, say, have a section of your magazine or publication dedicated to game reviews, or you're expected to have maybe 3 or more, you would put this token key at the beginning. However, if you're only doing, say, 1 game review per publication you could also shrink this and just place it at the very end, say, on this page of your review. So what I want to do with this is create a system where people who are new into the games industry can show people that they don't have any, corporate ties or anything that would perhaps be skewing their reviews, but also more well-known reviewers who have spent a long time with certain companies following certain games. Like, let's say you're a esports reporter for StarCraft and you have a very long relationship with Blizzard. Maybe that would be more beneficial if you have these tokens that are filled out so that people know that you do have a long-standing relationship with this developer, you know what you're talking about, and you've been with the scene for quite some time. Again, this whole system is built for both transparency but also nuance, and I hope that this can maybe shed some light on what's going on behind the scenes of your typical game review and help to carve out that window in that big wall I was talking about earlier. That's going to be about it. Thanks so much for your time.